Welcome to the Power of International Trip Planning and ForeFlight Dispatch. In this webinar, we'll look at how closely Dispatch integrates with Jeppesen ITPS, giving your operation access to a worldwide network of services to make your trip planning as seamless as possible. Let's go ahead and meet our presenters for today. Alex, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jay. Alex Smithers here, ForeFlight's Director of Business Development out of our Austin, Texas office. I've been working over the last couple of years with our flight service provider partners, including our friends at Jeppesen ITPS. And over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Alex. My name's Pete Cowley. I work with Jeppesen ITPS as a client relations specialist based over here in Gatwick in the UK. Pavel, over to you.
Cheers, Pete. My name is Pavel. I work for the Jeppesen International Trip Planning team as a group lead based in Gdańsk office in Poland.
Thanks, guys. In today's webinar, we'll take a closer look at both ForeFlight Dispatch and Jeppesen ITPS. Many of those here today are customers of one and not the other, or possibly neither. Then we'll take a look at the list of services that Jeppesen ITPS provides and how that can complement your team. Following that, Pavel will show us the tools he uses to plan a flight in Dispatch, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. With that, let's begin with a look at ForeFlight Dispatch. Alex, over to you.
All right. Hey, folks. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about ForeFlight Dispatch and the flight service provider integration. Many of you will be familiar with ForeFlight's mobile and web applications, and we're introducing today ForeFlight Dispatch as a powerful component of ForeFlight Web, delivering next-generation multi-user schedule-to-mobile flight planning, which creates efficiencies and productivity for flight departments of any size. Within it, we've got our centralized flight status view, which synchronizes flight data from flight scheduling applications, trip support, and your pilots using ForeFlight Mobile and Web. We've got off-the-shelf integrations with all of the major flight scheduling vendors and an open API, which simplifies custom integration development. Our integrated trip support capabilities with vendors such as Jeppesen ITPS allow them to easily access your ForeFlight Dispatch account to produce flight plans and share trip documentation. And of course, the final result is an integrated flight release. Flight releases synchronize all of the flight details and documentation to assigned crew members for immediate access in ForeFlight Mobile. And flight releases will email assigned crew members and provide links to open the flight and all of the relevant documentation in mobile, as well as open briefing documents and file attachments. We'll go into flight releases in a little more detail later this morning. Dispatch is our most advanced flight planning product, wrapped in an easy-to-use interface. You can quickly select from our recommended, preferred, ATC-cleared, and ForeFlight filed routes, or build your own using the route builder. You can run runway analysis and weight and balance, file the flight plan with air traffic control, and of course attach relevant trip documents as file attachments. And there's so much more which we'll dive into here in just a few minutes. Of course, we're here today discussing our integration with Jeppesen ITPS. Jeppesen is set up as a flight service provider, which means that their trip planners have ForeFlight logins and are able to log into your ForeFlight account to create new flights, as well as help manage your existing flights alongside your crews and FOC staff. You're able to leverage and benefit from their decades of flight planning expertise and leverage their robust ground handling, permitting, and authorization and other white glove services within the same platform you're managing the rest of your operation from. For most operators, it starts with a scheduled flight. We have over 15 popular scheduling integrations supported for Dispatch today, and they're using our scheduling API to send detailed flight information like crew members, passengers and cargo, flight tags, aircraft information, airports, and the departure time. It's also a two-way API, so flight details and performance calculations can flow back into your scheduling system to inform planning and optimize your turn times. Flights show up immediately in the flights list without having to refresh the page, which supports flexible filtering, search, and watch list options to allow you to customize what flights you want to see and manage your workload. As you start editing flights, performance is recalculated with every change for a hyper-streamlined workflow. Of course, you see here that tab-based organization is easy to navigate and allows you to complete all of the relevant tasks from one organized page. Alternate planning is an absolute breeze, as we recommend airports by proximity and display color-coded forecast weather. We can also provide flexible routing options with automatic or manual waypoint selection And the cruise profile selection there ensures that every pound of fuel is accounted for. ETP and ETOPS planning is built in and makes contingency planning quick and easy. Just select your airport pairs. Visualizations are included in the dynamic map view, as well as in the briefing package alongside forecast weather graphics. And an exhaustive ETP report with scenario calculations is included in the nav log. Recommended Eurocontrol valid routes are generated in seconds. And you can see here that the orange icon indicates that moderate or greater turbulence is expected along our route. One of Dispatch's many route constraints allows you to easily avoid all of these routes and altitudes and only propose those routes with a smooth ride. Weight and balance is integrated, and crew and passenger details can be entered manually as well as imported from scheduling and then auto-loaded into seats that keep the aircraft within limits wherever possible. The orange banner here shows that Dispatch will warn you when you're close to a structural or runway performance limit. In this case, you see that we're getting warnings from runway analysis while we're still manipulating weight and balance. Of course, you can also set up your standard weights for male, female, child, and infant passengers through the administrative settings within Dispatch. We've also integrated runway analysis to ensure that your takeoff and landing performance planning is easily accomplished during the flight planning process. Dispatch can auto-select the best runway and engine out procedure to maximize the takeoff weight limit and complete runway analysis with really no extra work. ForeFlight's in-house team of geospatial engineers has developed over 10,000 RNAV EOPs at this point, covering over 158 countries. And those RNAV EOPs aim to follow existing departure procedures wherever possible for the pilot's benefit. Robust automation and customization tools allow you to fine-tune Dispatch to work well for your operations. We have settings, for instance, that allow you to automatically refresh performance calculations and generate new briefings so that pilots always have the latest information available to them. You can automatically release flight plans to crew at a specified time prior to departure, which makes Dispatch particularly useful to streamline workflows for pilot-dispatched flights. And you can automatically generate a recommended route for imported flights that have not yet been worked by a dispatcher, which enables more realistic ETEs and turn time planning. The Navlog builder seen here supports dozens of configurable block types that can be easily resized and rearranged to tailor the dynamically generated Navlog to your liking. You can also use different Navlog formats for different types of trips or aircraft. It's the same story with operational rules. There's an ever-growing list of rule types, and simple if-then logic allows you to maximize flexibility and compliance throughout your operation. We also have company-saved routes that allow you to reuse commonly flown routes. Approved flight service provider personnel, again, have full access to Dispatch and your aircraft setup in order to help you with your flight planning and can support you as much or as little as you require. Jeppesen ITPS, Honeywell, and UAS are all supported as flight service providers and work closely with the ForeFlight team to provide the best service possible. The ITPS integration goes further with behind-the-scenes automations such as document uploads and an API integration with back-office systems to enable streamlined, quicker service delivery. Crew members are notified of the flight release and subsequent updates via email. And you can also share the flight with non-crew flight watchers to keep others in the loop as well. Editable flight releases allow crews to finish planning and file flight plans, and read-only flights ensure that dispatchers retain operational control of the flight plan. Updates made in Dispatch will sync automatically to mobile and vice versa, so that the flight crew and FOC are always looking at the same content and able to assist each other in real time. Of course, new flights created by pilots in ForeFlight Mobile are also synced back to Dispatch, so no flight is ever unaccounted for. Favorite ForeFlight features are also available in ForeFlight Mobile. Of course, as I mentioned, we've integrated runway analysis and weight and balance into Dispatch as well as mobile to streamline last-minute passenger changes and calculate landing distance at time of arrival. Flight documents are made available offline for easy access during your trips. Of course, you've got access to all the best graphical pre-flight briefing and weather information. You can familiarize yourself with the airport environment using our suite of 3D visualizations. We've got a decluttered map view with robust weather forecast overlays. Seen here, our dynamic winds aloft layer. And of course, best-in-class integrated global Jeppesen terminal procedure and en route charts. So there's your introduction to the fully integrated ecosystem with ForeFlight Dispatch sitting squarely in the middle, powering your operation through greater automation, customization, and collaboration. Your integrated scheduling system pushes booked trips into your ForeFlight Dispatch account, where Jeppesen ITPS can collaborate with your team to produce flight plans and provide additional services. The flight release from Dispatch pushes the flight and related documents to crew members in ForeFlight Mobile. Modifications made to the flight are synchronized between mobile and Dispatch automatically and immediately to ensure everyone is on the same page. And of course, you have access to best-in-class Jeppesen charts and data in ForeFlight Mobile. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pete Cowley to tell you more about Jeppesen ITPS.
Great, thanks, Alex. Let me extend my thanks to everyone joining the call today, taking the time to learn more about this key partnership between ForeFlight and Jeppesen. So, a little bit about who we are. Jeppesen International Trip Planning Service, shortened to ITPS, was formed in 1977, providing aviation support and operational services. At the start, we were primarily a flight plan provider, but as private aircraft became more popular, the demand for international trip support grew, and we've been broadening the offering ever since. We're an industry-recognized trip planning provider designed around safety, quality, and service. Those are our core principles. And we provide those services 24/7, 365 days a year. We currently provide full ITP services globally, not just to business aviation operators, but also commercial and military markets also. One way we ensure we provide the best service is to keep a worldwide trip planning presence. And how we do that is by deploying a follow-the-sun operational model staffed by very experienced trip and flight planners. Our average planner tenure is currently north of 13 years. We have regional ops centers ready to jump in and help you no matter where you're based. Those centers are based in multiple locations across the States, Europe, and also Brazil, Dubai, and China. What this does really is gives us local knowledge and local reach to work with customers and vendors across the network. We also aim to personalize the service as much as possible. So wherever you're located, our worldwide operational coverage is there to support you. When you join us as a customer, we try and ensure you've got a dedicated account manager communicating with you most, if not all of the time. This really helps ensure the high level of service and attention to detail around your trip that you need. Then when our planners answer your call or email, they'll be familiar with you, who you are, what's happening with your operation. And that's the kind of personal service we always strive to provide you. So let's talk more about the capabilities and value Jeppesen Trip Planning can provide. ITPS is a full service provider. Our goal is always to provide complete A to Z trip planning guidance and support to you. The services you're seeing on the screen here represent many of our core services we provide, ranging from ground handling setups right through to flight planning and permits and authorizations. Our team provides complete support during all stages of your trips. You know, whether you're in the pre-planning stage and you need assistance picking the most optimum fuel stop, or actually you're in the final stage of a trip, you need a customs notification, our team is ready to support you at every stage of the way. Recently, the COVID-19 pandemic made international operating requirements extremely fluid. So a key focus is on continuous monitoring of global events and travel restrictions before and during trips. I think as people start to fly internationally again, being aware of global events, being well connected, really matters now more than ever before. Alternatively, you might say to us, look, I'm comfortable booking hotels myself, but airport logistics are a pain. So Jeppesen, help me set all those things up. Handling agents, caterers, transport providers, slot arrangements, aircraft parking, you name it. So you can see it like this. Rather than us taking away your operational capability, see us as a la carte menu. Select what you want us to do, and then we become that extension of your own operations. Then sitting behind all these services is an amazing database built up over the last 40 plus years, covering areas such as country requirements, airport slot processes, airport curfews, restrictions, third-party service providers and capabilities. We use all of that mixed with our own trip planners experience, providing the best solutions for our customers. But all of that doesn't just happen on its own. Why don't we explore how we manage our vendor relationships? So a critical aspect of any trip planning provider is ensuring a strong global network is at the fingertips of our planners when setting up your services, but also for our customers once you're out on the road and in the air. We've got over 6,000 vendors listed in our databases. These include handlers, hotels, transport, catering companies, as well as airport authorities, government agencies like civil air offices. Speaking candidly, our vendors really are an extension of our brand. So we have a dedicated program with regional team based in the States and Europe, ready to support not only data continuity for internal systems, but also ensuring compliance to our Jeppesen vendor network standards. For those on-the-ground vendors, we have a comprehensive assessment process before they can join our network. It covers areas such as training, right through to liability, and then really the backbone of our program, which is strict adherence to US anti-bribery and foreign corrupt practice stipulations, as well as ensuring vendors adhere to local rules and regulations as well. Having a robust vendor network allows us to establish credit in all corners of the world, ensuring customers can rely on us for prompt payment on their behalf. But you've still got the flexibility to choose vendors you want to work with. We have a pretty thorough onboarding process when you join us. If you have vendor preferences, we can load those into a unique profile for you in our system. If a vendor you have is not in our network, we'll get them added for you. But actually, if you have no preferred vendors, that's fine too. We can recommend our preferred vendors to you. In the end, though, the choice is always yours. We also have invoicing options available to you, providing transparent and detailed reporting for accounting folks back in your office as and when needed. So let's take a look specifically at a partnership we believe will help as we begin working together. World Fuel Service is the world's largest reseller of fuel, and Jeppesen has had a long partnership with them for over 15 years. There's always flexibility. Our planning team can coordinate with any fuel provider, but we feel their pricing overall is really competitive. So it's a great option for you to look at. In today's world, operators need proven expertise to help effectively manage the impact of today's volatile fuel costs on their operations. And this is where World Fuel come in. Fuel releases can be obtained quickly, 24/7, at over 3,500 airfields worldwide, even some really remote places. And we do a lot of setups for oil companies who often go to places off the beaten path. And honestly, it's amazing at times what World Fuel can do to handle those fuel setups. We have on-site world fuel dispatchers at our ITPS operational centres in the States and in Europe, giving our trip planners easy access to fuel quotes and setups. The fuel coordination is complementary. It's just part of the ground handling setups we do for you. Our ITPS customers can also access world fuel quotes too. If you already have a special arrangement directly with World Fuel, that's great. These prices will reflect your customer-specific pricing. And what's important is they always include all taxes and interplane fees too. There are no surprises later on. So we've reviewed what Dispatch is. We've reviewed what ITPS is. So why don't we take a look at what it looks like in practice? With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Pavel, who's going to walk through a scenario within ForeFlight Dispatch to demonstrate what we do in ITPS.
Thank you very much, Pete. As Alex mentioned earlier, you can clearly see that we can easily pull up all the individual flight plans our customers do, either prepared by our flight planners or the customers themselves, like the crews, or them being imported from the scheduling tools. So we can either prepare a plan for you from scratch, or work on those which have been already prepared and tweak them or adjust them to your requirements. We are also flexible as a team with how the ways how you and our customers can reach out to us with any details or revisions or requests. So the two main ways of reaching out to us would be using our operational email or just call us and talk to a planner and discuss what changes or what items need to be prepared for your plan. Now let me open a new flight plan, and so we can work on a scenario for this demo. I've picked a rather tricky route, but it's very, very popular on the other hand. So we prepared the Dubai to London flight, which is very common for the business aviation. So let's just select the right aircraft. So I'll go with a global, and let's just pick one of the Dubai locations, OMDB, and we'll select Luton for being the most popular business aviation destination in London. If I've forgotten the ICAO, I can use the search engine. I know Alex mentioned earlier that the search engine here in ForeFlight is very good and it works perfectly fine for multiple search keywords. Like we can go with the ICAO code, but if I for whatever reason do not recall the right ICAO, I can go with Luton, and it will give me the option to select from the drop down as well. Let's go tomorrow, and let's say 10:00 Zulu for the return to London. That makes sense. From this section, we have all the operational items to be completed. We can assign call signs, select appropriate number of alternate airports as required, and also we can adjust the routing. With that said, we can set it for either being direct or automatically prepared by ForeFlight tool. We can adjust the speeds if the default database entries are required to be adjusted for the operational reasons. If we would like to go with another fuel policy, we can work with whatever is required. So let's say we would like to land with 5,000 pounds of fuel in this test case. We then normally proceed with crew selection, We can select the crews loaded in our system. So let's say the pilot in command would be the Alex, the pilot, and his second in command would be Mr. John, the pilot. And as you can see, this all translates into the appropriate POB entries and the weights, as you can hard code in the database, so it select the appropriate weights and amounts for either crews and then the packs as well. We will then add 2 passengers and using just the standard weights to make it a little simpler for today. We can see that the route that we have right now is the direct route, the Great Circle route, but we obviously need to consider the operators' requirements, the permit requirements, and also the geopolitical impact, which considering the current situation, we need to make sure that the whole operation and the whole flight meets all the safety criteria and all the requirements that operator have. So obviously this route will meet the direct route doesn't work for various reasons, one being the Eurocontrol validation, and as you can clearly see, the status of the current route is not compliant. And on the other hand, we would be crossing the hot zones and risk areas which are not acceptable. So here is a little tool from Ops Group listing all the airspace and conflict zones and risk areas that are mentioned in the official aviation related sources. And as you can see, the Middle East in particular and parts of Africa gives us a really good mixture of risk areas. We need to pay attention to to fulfill all the requirements and perform the operations to be safe and smooth. Coming back to the main tool, we're going to prepare a routing and try to build something reasonable. So for the start, I'll take all the risk areas and I will restrict them so we can clearly see what airspace we are allowed to use and we are okay to use, and then that will also mark the route builder engine to find the appropriate route. So I would select from the drop down. We can use various constraints and options for either avoiding the whole country or the FIRs. I personally prefer the FIRs because we can be a little bit more flexible. So I will type in the first countries on the risk list. That would be probably like Iraq, and then Syria, Afghanistan. Let's say we want to be really outside of the main risk areas. So I will also restrict the current military activity zones in Ukraine, and also Russia. So I have prepared the preferred route restrictions within the Middle East, so we can also use the partial route constraints. So I will go with the partial route, and I will use the appropriate route segments for the Middle East countries like United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. And the last one we would like to go for is the Saudi Arabia. That's one of the possible options. We can obviously adjust all this to the individual preferences for each of our customers. Some of them are happy to fly over certain countries and accept the risk, and we can be flexible and adjust to the specific requirements for each customer. In this case, we've picked the easy way for the permits. So let me try and generate the route. Okay, so the system has prepared a valid route, so we can try and check the available route reports to make sure there's no restrictions for the particular airways we will be using, and ForeFlight is very good and kind to let us generate this report of all airnav and airway restrictions from here. And once reviewed, we can either avoid the specific NOTAM-based restrictions or accept it as fulfilled, and then simply go back to the planning. We have various options for also airspace and countries crossing review. So for to double check if you have all the required permits, or for the test plan to make sure you're planning to optimize your route and make sure you have the source for the permit checks. And it can export in various formats. So you have also the waypoint for the FIR entry and exit points and the times as well. So this is a very good example. Another available option is to see all the airway NOTAMs related. For this particular route, we do not have any, so we're good to go. Also, the route tools contain the procedure advisor, so it can actually suggest you the seed and star procedures available for either your route selection, or you can actually show all the options available and select all the appropriate seeds and stars for your flight as required. So since we have a valid route prepared, we can now analyze and request all the permits required for our route and continue planning on that. Or if we are planning like a leave flight plan, we can then proceed to all other options. So we are going back to our flight plan, and if we would like to file this flight plan, simply we'll need to proceed to the ATC data and then work on the all the required data, like the type of flight. We will go with the general aviation flight plan, and we would put all the remarks required, like the permit numbers or like operator required remarks, and adjust the filing strip as you can see shown here. And also the ForeFlight is very good with processing all the ATC responses, like acknowledgements, like flight plan possible rejections, and especially in the Eurocontrol area, it would show you all the CTOT regulations, so all that sector delays and slots being assigned to your flight. We can, after filing, we can obviously release the flight plan, which basically means we could push the planning to your mobile device, and also the basic planning details to your email as well. And you could, potentially either adjust any items required yourself, or reach out to us back and ask if there is, and confirm if there is any additional adjustments needed. And obviously any ATC responses would then be transmitted to your email address. We can also upload any necessary documentation like Gendex, APIS, filing documents for you to have available in your on your iPad, on your device, which is really handy. or any other documents you as an operator or crew would require, like fuel releases. We can basically drop any files here as required. The biggest advantage this tool gives us on the dispatch side is that we can work on these possible reroute or revision scenarios, like when and if your particular flight plan would be affected by ATC slots or ATC restrictions, and we would find out about it after filing. We as flight planners can use the dispatch side of the system and simply work on rerouting scenarios. For instance, I'm sure you all are aware how we can determine the pandemic is over, because obviously the ATC strikes in Italy and France are back in the business. So, that causes a lot of stress many times to, occurring as a last minute ATC slots being assigned in these regions. The best part about us in the international trip planning, having the access to your dispatch, is that we can assist you with this last minute revisions, as I mentioned earlier, and take off the stressful part of all these reroutes from either the crew or your ops, and using our experience and know-how all around the world. We also have, as Pete mentioned, we have that local knowledge that can easily help us speed up all these processes and make sure that we can minimize possible disruptions and help you achieve the goal of departing as close to the desired ETD as possible. With that said, I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and that will conclude our little demo today. So Jay, I'd like to hand over back to you.
Thanks, Pavel. We've gotten a lot of great questions today, and before we begin to answer some of them live, I want to point you to a few useful resources. You can learn more about ForeFlight Dispatch at foreflight.com/dispatch. You can learn more about Jeppesen International Trip Planning Services at jeppesen.com/ITP. You can register for more webinars and watch past ones, like our webinar a few weeks ago that took an in-depth look at the capabilities of ForeFlight Dispatch at foreflight.com/webinars. You can also reach the ForeFlight and Jeppesen ITPS sales teams at the email addresses that you see on the screen. With that, let's move on to some questions. And we've got a lot of great questions today. Like I mentioned a second ago, many of them are focused on current dispatch customers interested in bringing on ITPS into their operations. So Pete, all of the questions I have are actually for you. The first one I have is, do we need to sign a specific contract to use Jeppesen ITPS?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that question. Great question. And the answer is yes, you do need to sign Jeppesen's terms and conditions before you use our services, but there's no minimum service requirement. And you can use the services ad hoc as you need. As you need the services, you can pick and choose what you want, or as part of a subscription plan as well. So there's a few different ways to do it and structure it. And that email address you're seeing there on the screen, contact Jeppesen Sales, that's the way to go. Just send us an email and we'll send you some more information.
Perfect. Thanks, Pete. And I should mention, too, that after this webinar in about an hour, you're going to get an email. Each of you attending today will get an email with all of these links. So you don't have to copy them down quickly. They'll all be in your inbox here shortly. Pete, the second question for you. We've gotten several questions about the types of operators that you work with. Part 135, Part 91. Can you answer that?
Yeah, sure. Another great question. We do work with a whole host of operation types, Part 91 and Part 135. 100% we deal with a lot of the time. We deal with also a lot of VIP or VVIP style operations, head of state, right through to cargo, non-scheduled type stuff, scheduled operations, block permits, that sort of thing, and ferry delivery flights of all shapes and sizes. So yes, we do, and we're well placed to help you with that. One of the big challenge is that actually there's different requirements for all the different types of operation, and that throws up its own challenges. But one of the strengths that we have in our databases is the various permit and service requirements for each style of operation. We know that for one type, let's say a Part 135 commercial operation, some countries are going to need more documentation and requirements to get permits, and the lead-in time for those can be longer. And so we have all of that detailed down, ready for our team to support you with those operations. Same goes for things like EAPS submissions, for flights into the States and also international locations as well. So we can assist with that and give you all the pricing and costing information to support your style of operation.
Wonderful. And last question I have for you here. How do we communicate with Jeppesen ITP?
Yeah, brilliant. Great question again. So most of the time, communication with our customers is done via a global email address or a phone number, which is monitored 24/7. We've learned over the years it's actually more beneficial to have one central email address that our whole team are monitoring, and all of our planning team have access to your trips and can assist at any time. So earlier on in the presentation, I mentioned all the locations where our operations teams are based. And so that global team can access your trips through our system at any time. And so by communicating through that one email address and one phone number, you'll access our team of planners who are on hand to support you whatever time you call us or email us.
Perfect. Thanks, Pete. Well, that wraps up all the questions that we have for today. Again, any of these links will be really useful for you to learn more information. And again, I'll send that here in an email just in about an hour. So we'll also have this webinar posted at foreflight.com/webinars, hopefully later today. If you would like to share this with any colleagues or anyone else who might benefit from it as well, or if you'd like to review any of it yourself. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Pavel, for this great presentation. And thank you all for attending, and we'll see you on the next webinar.